Hello everybody and welcome to the Why Diets Don't Work workshop. So let's start by talking about what is a diet. By definition, a diet is two things. One is just basically how you eat, a person, an animal or community. A second diet, which is the diets that this whole workshop is about, is a way of eating which one restricts themselves either to lose weight or for medical reasons, i.e. I'm going on a diet. So if your eating habits fall into the second category, that is the type of diet that we're talking about. Now, people will often say to you, I'm not on a diet, I'm on a healthy eating plan. It's not a diet, I feel better eating this way. It's not a diet, I'm a vegetarian for ethical reasons. And it's not a diet, I'm eating clean. Many people will say this because they understand that diets don't work. And even certain diet companies, for example, shake companies, not mentioning any names, will tell you that it's a lifestyle plan and that you're not going on a diet, when in reality you are still reducing your calories to a certain extent. And the sole purpose of the diet is to restrict yourself so that you lose weight or change your body. So let's talk about the diet and fitness industry and where your money is going. So the diet industry in Britain alone is worth £2 billion. And advertisers know exactly how to manipulate us and play on our insecurities. Britons spend a staggering £2.8 billion just to get in shape in January. More than 4 in 5, 82% of Britons will kickstart a diet in the new year. Aspiring gym bunnies will splash out £56 on clothing. Average new fitness fanatics will spend £76.50 on equipment. And many more money will be wasted because they quit by February. Meanwhile, 2/5, 45%, will take on a detox plan, and a third, 31%, will splash out an average of £28 on kitchen equipment such as steamers, juicers, to help them fulfill their health goals. One thing that I find really shocking is bariatric surgery in Britain costs the NHS £85 million a year. So just a breakdown of a previous year, diet soft drinks cost £21 billion. Health clubs, £19 billion. Medical plans, £8 billion. That includes bariatric surgery, prescription drugs, hospital, physician plans, and very low calorie plans. Commercial weight loss centres, £3 billion. Meal replacements and diet pills, £2 billion. Artificial sweeteners, £2 billion. Low calorie diet foods, £2 billion. Diet books and exercise videos, £1 billion. So 95% of diets fail. Most will regain their weight in 1 to 5 years. 75% of women surveyed endorse unhealthy thoughts, feelings or behaviours related to food or their bodies. 80% of girls by the time they're 10 years old have been on a diet. 35% of occasional dieters progress into pathological dieting, disordered eating, and as many as 25% advance to full-blown eating disorders. At least 10 million females and 1 million males are fighting a life and death battle with an eating disorder, and a million more are struggling with binge eating disorder. Eating disorders have the highest mortality rate amongst all mental health disorders. So why is this happening? Why did I fail my diet? Am I broken? So to understand what's going on here, let's talk about the Minnesota starvation experiment. So the Minnesota starvation experiment was done in 1944 to 1945, and it was due to the Second World War conditions which made it likely that people were going to face a famine in the future. They wanted to know how the body would react to starvation and find solutions that people could use following the impending shortage to see how they would get back to normal life afterwards. They chose all white males, 22 to 33 years old, and the final 36 of an original group of 400 men that trialled were chosen due to their mental and physical health and commitment to the study. They were not going to fight in the war, but they could do something to support the country by participating in the study. So they were strong, healthy men, and they looked at motivation, behaviour, emotional, intellectual and social changes. They had to keep a diary and walk 22 miles a week. No other restrictions other than the meals. There was a first initial 12-week period of control where they had 3,200 calories a day to get them to their ideal weight, doing normal activity, physical labour. 24 weeks, they had a semi-starvation of calories of 1,560 a day, during which time they lost 25% of their body weight, an average of 16.5 kilos, 37 pounds. The symptoms were their BMR dropped 50%. BMR are calories that you'd use in hospital, not moving and just living. It's your basic metabolic rate. So their pulse decreased 30 to 40 beats per minute at rest. They had increased sensitivity to cold and they wanted hot foods, baths and drinks. They had cold hands. They had an increased tolerance for heat and they kept asking for food extra hot. They spent a lot of their time lying in the sun trying to keep warm, drinking teas and coffees. The satisfaction increased from drinking hot drinks. They wanted up to 15 cups a day, so they were set a limit to 9 cups. They were so thirsty to get the sense of fullness, so they chewed gum. They started smoking. They tried to chew 40 packs of chewing gum. But because they had ulcers and mouth issues, they were told to stop doing this. They had a less sex drive, less libido. Desire was non-existent. So desire and reproductive abilities reduced. Sperm samples showed low sperm motility. So from a normal sperm that used to swim 25.5 hours, their sperm was now swimming 4.8 hours. They had less red blood cells, so they had anemia. And obviously your red blood cells are used for oxygen. They had decreased white blood cells, 30% less immune system. Their hair grew slowly and started falling out. Their nails slowed and stopped growing. They started craving for salt. There are different signs of mental illness. One example, a guy accidentally cut 3 fingers off whilst chopping wood. He later said, "I admit to say I was crazy mixed up at the time. I'm not ready to say that I did or I didn't do it on purpose." They had food obsession. They started reading cookbooks, agriculture, reading and planning to become chefs and open restaurants. When they had food, they would handle food like a baby. It was precious. They'd be licking their plates. There would be an extended meal time. They would dilute potatoes with water, chew slowly, have certain rituals around food, eat foods in a certain combination on the plate, dividing their food up. Just overly bizarre behaviours. And as time went on, the more difficult the experiment came. When one guy went into town and found food, he ended up stealing food and was eliminated from the project. He said he had an experience of a massive high from eating the food and then a depressive low. He felt that the world was a happy place, and then he had extreme pessimism and remorse. He felt he failed miserably. He suffered character neurosis. They had major stress responses. One became psychotic. They aged prematurely, aesthetically and functioning. They felt dizzy. They had low blood pressure. They had blackouts, frequent urination, constipated, cuts and bruises healed slowly, muscle cramps and pains, and they had rough and thin skin. But they also suffered a loss of ambition, concentration and depression. They wanted to be alone. They were reluctant to plan activities and participate in group activities. One of them quoted, "I am cold, I am weak, and I now have oedema. Social interactions take second place over food. I don't like to sit near guests as I don't want to entertain them. It's an effort to see the ones I love. If I see a show, I'm more happy about the food images than the love scenes." 24 weeks restrictive rehabilitation. 12 weeks later, the men split into varied diets, and they were analysed different proteins and supplements. The purpose was to decide which diet worked best for rations and for refeeding the world if it needed to get them back to normal. The calories were still low. There was not much improvement between each of the diets. The final 8 weeks, unrestricted rehab, they ate whatever they wanted until they were content. The guys ended up binging. They binged on average 4,000 to 10,000 calories per day. They still felt hungry after large meals, but unable to ingest any more food. They had rapid weight gain, and most of that gain was fat. They had health improvements instantly. 3 days in, one gained 6 pounds. His heart rate went from 36 beats per minute to 60 beats per minute. Another man's BMR doubled in 3 days. So after 3 months of rehab unrestricted, even the highest calorie intake, their overall health was still not as good as their previous. 6 months normal living and eating, they started to get back to pre-experiment. But some continued to binge after 8 months. One was hospitalised after needing his stomach pumped after a binge. Their body fat went back to pre-experiment, even though they weighed less. So they had more fat than muscle. The fat is preferential in recovery for your body because it has function. So 8 months, the men had lean body pre-experiment, but ab fat was 40% higher than when they started and dropped down later. 46 weeks, weight and body fat returned once intuitive eating happened. So in summary, in a nutshell, the participants' weight went up 0.7 kilograms to 7.2 kilograms, which is 1.5 pounds to 13 to 14 pounds heavier than when they started. So what happens to your weight when you restrict calories consciously or unconsciously, trying to eat healthier or just being busy and not prioritizing food? The same thing that happened in the experiment. The weight goes on. Fat more than lean. Your reaction is to restrict again, and the cycle starts, which is the diet yo-yo. With each diet, the weight goes up more and more, with the preferred weight being body fat. Let's talk about the government's eat less and move more, and your brain. So the assumption that calories in versus calories out is wrong. When you reduce your calories, especially when you increase the calories that you burn, your body goes into a state of stress and it reduces the calories that it spends. That's why when you first go on a diet, you feel mentally foggy, you feel more tired and cold. But when things slow down, it still doesn't balance the calorie deficit. Surely you'd lose fat, right? Well, no, because the body burns tissue, the tissue that uses the most energy, which is your hard-earned muscles. So when you cut calories, you lose weight, but you lose muscle. So post-diet, we have this issue of slower metabolism because your metabolism is your muscles. Your metabolic rate, as we said, the calories that you burn at rest. Your muscles are more metabolically active than your fat. And as we now have less metabolically active tissue, you end up putting on more fat than when you started. But most of people's problems when it comes to dieting will arise at brain level. So we're going to talk a little bit about your brain. The reptilian brain, your lower brain. The human brain, which served very few basic functions back in the day. This is the most primal part of your brain and is responsible for keeping us alive. It drives our survival instinct and is dedicated to keeping us safe and protected. It's also responsible for behaviours of aggression, dominance and mating. So when you think of the reptilian brain, you think of it as being responsible for the 5 F's. 1. Fight. 2. Flight. 3, freeze, 4, food, and 5, fuck. Because reproduction is key to survival. So this is the part of the brain that was key to your survival during caveman era, when food was scarce. If you found food, you would eat as much as possible because you didn't know when you would find food again. The reptilian brain's answer is always eat, no matter what you ask. I am sad, you must eat. I am happy, you must eat. The brain can't be reasoned with. You can't tell it your goals. The good thing to note is that this part of your brain can't actually move. It can't walk, it can't open the cupboard, and it can't talk. So this brain uses your higher brain to talk to you inside your head, so it even sounds like you. For example, you eat a meal, you feel full. Your higher brain says, I'm done, I'm full. The reptilian brain says, eat more, you need to eat more. The higher brain says, no, I don't want to do that. I've got goals. So the reptilian brain says, what? You have to eat more. I'm going to turn up your cravings. We need to survive. So especially if you've dieted before, as this part of your brain remembers and it fears that you're going to be starving again in the future. This part of your brain doesn't understand diet. It only understands starvation. This is what we call cognitive fusion. When the real you and the reptilian brain fuse together and you think the voice is you, so you act on it. You feel like a failure. Now the you brain, the higher brain, the prefrontal cortex, this is your morals and your reasons. You want to be healthy. This is the real you. This is the part that makes you think you're crazy because you ate the junk food out of control. What's amazing is this part of your brain moves and talks and has the power to not do what the reptilian brain wants us to do. You've probably heard before about anxiety and panic attacks, and the reptilian brain will be the brain that makes you fear like a lion is going to get you and you must fight or flight. So it's very much the same, where we still have those primal instincts in us. So here's something you might recognize. You wake up New Year's Day and you wonder why you ate so much the night before. The reptilian brain said, I may as well finish this now because I'm going to diet tomorrow. Or, I just need to eat it to get it out the house and stop obsessing and knowing that it's there. Or, it's a celebration and I'm allowed to have it. I've worked so hard and I deserve it. So you probably recognise some of those thoughts, especially when it comes to weekends and Monday morning diets, or this time of year where it's New Year's Day and you're going to start a diet. Let's talk about food and headspace exercise. So let's just take a moment to reflect back over the last few slides and see how much of your brain space you're using on thoughts about food, exercise, and your body. So ultimately, those things are not life. Those things you need to live a healthy life, but they are not your life. And when we become obsessed with these things, we're taken further and further away from what our purpose is. If you think about the starvation experiment, the men couldn't help think about food all the time. And now you understand the brain, you can see why. The brain was helping them to survive. When you think about your life, we need to find a balance of family, social, emotional, mental, physical, work and play. We're not living if we're thinking about food, exercise and body image all day long. So let's talk about the diet cycle, the yo-yo. The diet cycle starts with your desire to be thin. So where does that come from? Now we live in a fat-phobic society. We're constantly bombarded with images of thin people by the media. We're probably told by our parents that it's better to be too thin than to be too fat, and that we would be loved more, we'll be more healthy, we'll live longer. Even our GPs and the government are telling us to be thin, and we could all do with losing a bit of weight. So 4 out of 5 people want to be thin, and kids as young as 9 are now dieting. So you start dieting. Now the first diet is always a success. Your body responds to you and you lose weight. Society applauded you, and so it further ingrains your desire for thinness. But eventually cravings kick in and you binge, or you overeat, or you fall off the wagon in quotes. You regain the weight, plus more, and more as the years go on and the longer you've been a dieter. You feel bad, you feel fat, you think you're unhealthy, so you diet again. Because it worked the first time, right? If dieting worked, the weight loss industries would go out of business. Even Weight Watchers were quoted as saying, "We get most of our business from return customers." So, this cycle was started by poor body image for most of us. There is a great quote by Nick Richards that says, "When you change the way you look at your body, the body you look at changes." Now, I know many adults who look back at their first diet and wonder why they did that to begin with, as they didn't need to lose weight in the first place. A body image is the way you see your body, not necessarily how your body looks or the world sees you. Have you ever looked at someone else and thought, wow, they look amazing, but they don't think it themselves? And have you ever thought, when I get the perfect body, I'll be able to do X. I'll be happy, I'll be sexy, I'll attract the right partner, or I'll be desirable to my partner? Well, having that body is not all it's cracked up to be. Let me tell you, there is no perfect body. Once you think your body is going to do anything for your life, your goal is already flawed. We already know that diets don't work. So even if you obtain that body, for 95% of us, it's not going to last. Then, are you going to go back to being unhappy and fatter? Or if you'd have known that what you know now, you could work on your body image and work on being happy in the body that you're in now and never diet to begin with. We can also stop our kids from going down this yo-yo cycle of dieting by becoming comfortable in our own bodies, because how we feel and behave is reflected on our children. If you remember growing up, did you see your mum weighing herself, talking about food as good and bad and fearing fat? You can't eat this because you'll get fat, teaching us that fat is bad? How would you feel if your children spoke about themselves the way you talk about yourself? Let's talk about intuitive eating and what we can do. The human species is the most intelligent of all mammals, yet we're the only mammals that seem to need a meal plan and we're told what to eat. We weren't born this way. In fact, we were born intuitive eaters. Have you ever wished your child would drink a little bit more milk so they could stay asleep longer in the night? I know I have. When they're babies and you're completely tired, you've just given birth and you could just do with a few extra hours sleep. If only they wouldn't eat so small, frequent meals. Well, they won't, because they know exactly how much they have to eat to keep themselves full. They know when they're hungry again, and they wake up and cry for more. You cannot force feed or overfeed a baby, and you cannot let them go long feeling hungry. And as you grew up, you were given a set of rules. Mentioned earlier, your parents said, don't be greedy, this is your portion and that is that. You could also have had the same experience as me, where you were told to eat everything on your plate, whether you were full or not. And for those of you who have dieted many times before, it's easy to become completely detached from our experience of hunger and satiety due to constant overriding your body's signals for both. So it will be hard for you to turn back into an intuitive eater. You can do things like using the hunger scale to fullness, which you can find online if you just Google hunger scale. You can turn off the TV when you're eating, stop eating whilst you're distracted. And you can allow yourself full permission to eat all food. Stop seeing food as good food and bad food. If we're so obsessed with eating what we consider to be good food in quotes, then we're going to, in certain situations when there's no food around that you consider to be good, you'd rather starve yourself before you can get good food. Whereas if you have a bit of bad food one day, it's not going to make a difference. You're still eating something and you're fulfilling that hunger. And then when you do have the ability to make food choices, you can choose better food if you want to. But it's all down to you. But we need to take away the good food and bad food in our minds. Let's talk about set point theory. Now, set point is your body's thermostat. So if you imagine a thermostat in your house, you set it to a certain temperature. When you open the window and the house temperature starts to go down, the thermostat bumps up the heating and it keeps it up to a certain point. Or if you close all the windows and you light a fire, the thermostat will turn down so it keeps your house to a certain point. This is homeostasis, that balance in the middle. This is what your body wants to do. And it has the same controls over your weight. It likes to be at a set point within around 10 to 12 pounds. So let me explain. For example, the guys in this starvation experiment, they were starved down to below their set point. And this is the same thing that happens to other people when they go below their set point. Now, everybody's set point is different because bodies are diverse. So somebody could be aesthetically pleasing to the eye according to society's standards of beauty, and they could be living below their set point, and their body is trying to get them back to their set point, to its homeostasis, and it's giving them thoughts of food all the time. It's making them feel cold, and various symptoms that we heard about in the starvation experiment they are having because they're below their set point. Their metabolism is going to go low. They can't eat very much because their basic metabolic rate has dropped, and when they do start to eat, they're going to put on weight real fast. But if you do stay in that point for so long, your set point will be raised. It's easy to raise our set point, but it's not so easy to get it down. The same thing could happen for somebody who you would consider obese on the BMI scale. They could naturally be in a bigger body because that is their set point, that is their genetics. They could diet down to look the same as a thin person, and the thin person and the fatter person are eating the same foods and doing the same healthy habits with their lifestyle, with their exercise, and yet they appear in two different bodies. The thin person, if they were naturally thin and that was their genetics and they can eat whatever they want, we all know people like that. Everybody has a friend who can just eat whatever they like and their weight never changes. That's genetics, that is life. And the bigger person is dieting down to try to look the same as that person, and it's not working because they're going below their set point. So let's talk about body diversity and health at every size. I want to introduce you to Linda Bacon. Linda Bacon, a PhD, is an internationally recognised authority on topics related to nutrition, weight and health. A health professor and researcher, she holds graduate degrees in physiology, psychology and exercise metabolism, and with a speciality in nutrition. She conducted federally funded studies on diet and health and is well published in top scientific journals. She is the author of Health at Every Size and Body Respect, which I've read both of. Talking about her work in a nutshell is not really going to do it justice, so I would highly recommend that you watch one of her talks on YouTube or you read one of her books. Both links will be sent to you on this email. So allow me to explain body diversity. If you look at newborn babies, look at the difference in the way that they look. They weigh different weights. They have different skin colours, they have different facial features, they're different shapes. This is our genetics. We were all meant to look different. Making ourselves look like a fitness model as an adult is possible for some, but for others it will be terribly unhealthy. As I mentioned before, we all have a friend who can eat whatever they want and never put weight on, and the same goes for losing it, no matter how little you eat. So a final note from me. Dieting. Is it worth it? My answer to that is no. Dieting for me caused me to have an eating disorder and body dysmorphia. And when I attempted bodybuilding, that caused me to have orthorexia, where I was obsessed by my body, by eating clean, having cheat meals on certain days. And it just became all too mind consuming, as we discussed earlier in the mind, how much thoughts go on food and body. So even though I achieved what I thought was the perfect body, I still hated it. I still felt I needed more of this, less of that. And while being obsessed by food and my weight and exercise, all that brain space took me further and further away from my kids, husband, and my clients. But now, I'm an intuitive eater. I can eat whatever I want. I don't worry about food or feel anxious around food. I exercise now because I love my body and I love teaching and I love helping others. So that is it really in a nutshell. If you do have any questions on any of the topics discussed, I would be happy to answer them for you. So you can email me on nicola@fustelfit.co.uk, or you can catch me on Facebook, Nicola Fustel, or my business page, Fustel Fit. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, all of social media. My website is www.fustelfit.co.uk. So there's a lot more detail to go into on each of these slides and various topics throughout dieting and body image and everything, but I guess that's it for now. And I hope that gives you some food for thought. Until next time, have a fantastic new year and don't diet.